Isabella Chen stood before the full-length mirror in her bridal suite at the Riverside Manor, studying her reflection with an artist's eye. The ivory Vera Wang gown hugged her figure perfectly, its delicate lace sleeves trailing to her wrists. Her dark hair had been swept into an elegant updo, small diamond pins catching the morning light. She looked every bit the radiant bride. Except she felt nothing but ice in her veins. "You're absolutely stunning," her younger sister Lily breathed from the doorway, carrying a silver tray with champagne flutes. "Derek's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm counting on it." The package had arrived at dawn, delivered by courier to her private suite. No return address, just her name written in block letters. Inside, she'd found a USB drive, photographs, and a single note: "You deserve to know the truth before you say, I do." The photos showed Derek with Vanessa Price, Isabella's maid of honor, her best friend since college, in various compromising positions. The timestamps went back 6 months. But worse than the affair were the audio recordings on the USB drive. Isabella had listened to them 3 times, her wedding makeup artist working around her frozen expression. "The Chen patents are worth billions," Derek's voice had said clearly. "Once we're married, I'll have legal access through the joint venture clause." Isabella's too trusting to read the fine print. Vanessa's laughter had followed. "She really thinks you love her." "Love doesn't build empires, babe. But her family's quantum computing technology will. Give it 6 months after the wedding, then we'll file for divorce. I'll keep the patents, and you and I can finally go public." Isabella had sat perfectly still as those words destroyed 3 years of her life. 3 years of believing Derek Ashford, tech entrepreneur, Stanford graduate, Time magazine's 30 Under 30, actually loved her for more than her family's intellectual property. Now, standing in this bridal suite surrounded by flowers and champagne, Isabella Chen was not the naive woman Derek thought he was marrying. She was her father's daughter, trained from childhood in strategy and patience. And she had spent the last 4 hours making very specific arrangements. "Bella?" Lily touched her arm gently. "Are you okay? You seem distant." "Just nervous," Isabella lied smoothly. "Where's Vanessa?" "Getting dressed with the other bridesmaids. She wanted me to tell you she's so honored to stand beside you today." Isabella's jaw tightened imperceptibly. How sweet of her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer: "Everything's in place." "Are you sure about this?" She typed back quickly: "Absolutely. See you at the ceremony." Through the window, Isabella could see guests arriving at the outdoor venue. Derek's business partners, venture capitalists who'd invested in his company, tech industry leaders, journalists from major publications. All there to witness the union of 2 prominent families in Silicon Valley. They would witness something, but not a wedding. Isabella had considered canceling, simply walking away. But that would let Derek save face, spin some story about cold feet. He'd find another heiress to manipulate, another woman to use. No, she needed to expose him completely, publicly, in a way that would destroy not just their relationship but his carefully crafted reputation. 5 minutes, Miss Chen, the wedding coordinator called cheerfully. Isabella picked up her bouquet of white orchids, beneath which lay a small tablet loaded with evidence. She'd practiced her speech in the shower, timed it perfectly. 3 minutes to destroy a man who'd spent 3 years destroying her trust. Her father appeared at the door, distinguished in his tuxedo. James Chen had built his tech empire from nothing, and he'd taught his daughters to fight with intelligence, not emotion. "Ready, my dear?" Isabella looked at him, seeing understanding in his eyes. She'd shown him everything that morning. He'd wanted to call off the wedding immediately, but she'd convinced him to let her handle it her way. "I'm ready, Dad. Are you sure you want to walk me down to this?" He smiled grimly. "I'd walk you through fire, Isabella. This is just Derek Ashford." He's about to learn what happens when you underestimate a Chen woman. The music began, Pachelbel's Canon, the song she'd chosen months ago when she still believed in fairy tales. Isabella took her father's arm, her grip steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside her. As they stepped out of the suite, she caught her reflection one last time. The woman in the mirror wasn't a victim. She was a warrior in a wedding dress, about to wage war with evidence instead of weapons. Derek Ashford had made a critical error. He'd assumed her love made her weak. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. The garden at Riverside Manor had been transformed into something from a magazine spread. White roses climbed elegant archways, crystal chandeliers hung from ancient oak trees, and 200 guests sat in expectation. The afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, dappling everything in gold. Isabella walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her steps measured and deliberate. She noticed everything, the tech journalists in the third row, cameras discreetly positioned. Derek's major investors clustered together on the groom's side. Vanessa standing at the altar in her champagne bridesmaid dress, practicing a sympathetic smile. And Derek, waiting at the altar in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, wearing the expression of a man who thought he'd won everything. As Isabella reached the front, her father hesitated before handing her over. She squeezed his hand once, their signal. He nodded almost imperceptibly and took his seat in the front row, his phone already recording. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, his voice carrying over the assembled crowd. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Isabella Chen and Derek Ashford in holy matrimony." Derek reached for her hand. She let him take it, feeling nothing but disgust at his touch. "Before we continue," Isabella said clearly, her voice steady, "I have something to share." The officiant looked confused. "Miss Chen, the vows come." "This isn't a vow," Isabella interrupted, pulling her hand away from Derek. She turned to face the congregation, her bouquet still in hand. "This is a statement." Derek's smile faltered. "Bella, what are you?" "3 days ago, I received evidence of your affair with my maid of honor, Vanessa Price." Isabella's voice carried across the garden. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "But more importantly, I discovered that this entire relationship has been a calculated effort to steal my family's quantum computing patents." "That's insane," Derek said, his face paling. He grabbed her arm. "You're having cold feet, Anne." Isabella shook him off, pulling out the tablet from beneath her bouquet. "Am I? Let me share some recordings with everyone." "Audio from your apartment, Derek. From 6 days ago." She pressed play. Derek's voice filled the garden through the ceremony sound system. "The Chen patents are worth billions. Once we're married, I'll have legal access through the joint venture clause." The guests erupted in shocked murmurs. Isabella let the recording play, watching Derek's face cycle through denial, panic, and finally cold anger. "You bugged my apartment," he hissed. "I didn't need to. Your mistress sent me everything." Isabella looked directly at Vanessa, whose face had gone sheet white. "Funny thing about scorned lovers, they tend to document everything. Vanessa sent me 6 months of evidence when she realized you were planning to dump her after our divorce." Vanessa stumbled backward, shaking her head. "I didn't, that wasn't." "Don't bother denying it," Isabella said calmly. She turned back to the crowd, specifically addressing the cluster of investors. "Mr. Harrison, Ms. Patel, Mr. Chenlu, you all invested heavily in Ashford Technologies based on promised access to Chen Industries patents through this marriage, correct?" The investors shifted uncomfortably. Senior partner Marcus Harrison stood slowly. "Miss Chen, we were assured this was a legitimate business arrangement." "It was fraud," Isabella cut him off. "Which my family's legal team will be addressing. You'll find documentation of the patent theft scheme in your email inboxes right about." She checked her watch, now. Phones buzzed throughout the garden. Derek lunged for her tablet, but Isabella's cousin Jason, a former college linebacker, intercepted him smoothly. "Don't," Jason warned. Isabella pressed another button. Photos appeared on the tablet screen: Derek and Vanessa at hotels, Derek meeting with patent lawyers, documents outlining the theft scheme. She walked slowly through the guests, letting them see everything. "For 3 years," Isabella continued, her voice never wavering, "I believed I'd found someone who loved me for myself, not my family's money or technology. I helped Derek build his company, introduced him to investors, shared ideas and resources. And all the while, he was planning to steal everything." Derek's mask finally cracked. "You think you're so smart? You think this ruins me? I'll sue you for defamation." "You'll do nothing," James Chen said, standing from his seat. His voice carried the weight of decades in Silicon Valley's cutthroat business world. "My lawyers filed fraud charges against you an hour ago. The SEC has been investigating your company for securities fraud for the past 6 months, information I provided them. And every investor here now has documentation of your scheme to steal patents through fraudulent marriage." Derek's face went from pale to gray. "You can't prove." "I have 6 months of recordings," Isabella said. "Emails. Text messages. Video footage. Signed documents outlining your plan. Vanessa provided everything when she realized you were going to betray her too." She finally looked at Vanessa, who was crying silently. "Funny how that works, isn't it? You helped him betray me, then he betrayed you. Maybe there's a lesson there." "Isabella, I'm sorry," Vanessa sobbed. "I never meant." "You meant exactly what you did," Isabella said coldly. "We were friends for 8 years, Vanessa. 8 years. And you destroyed that for a man who was using both of us." The garden had gone silent except for Vanessa's crying and the click of cameras. The journalists were documenting everything. Isabella turned back to Derek one last time. "You wanted to marry me for my family's patents. You wanted access to Chen Industries' quantum computing research. You wanted to use me as a stepping stone." She smiled, but it was sharp as broken glass. "Instead, you just destroyed your company, your reputation, and your future. Consider this my wedding gift to you, the truth about who you really are, exposed to everyone who matters." "You vindictive," Derek started forward, but Jason and 2 security guards Isabella had positioned were there instantly. "Mr. Ashford," a new voice cut through the chaos. A woman in a dark suit stepped forward, badge in hand. "I'm Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI White Collar Crimes Division. We need you to come with us." As Derek was led away in handcuffs, still protesting, Isabella finally felt something other than ice. Relief. Justice. Freedom. She turned to her family and real friends, the ones who'd supported her through this. "I apologize for the unconventional ceremony. But I thought everyone deserved to know the truth. The reception is still on, by the way. Shame to waste good champagne." A few people laughed, more from shock than humor. As guests began filing out, some supportive, others scandalized, Isabella stood at the altar in her wedding dress, victorious. She'd come here to get married. Instead, she'd waged war and won. The news spread like wildfire through Silicon Valley. By evening, Derek Ashford fraud was trending on every social media platform. Tech blogs published think pieces about corporate espionage and romantic manipulation. The wedding photos, or rather, the wedding disaster photos, went viral. Isabella sat in her penthouse apartment, finally out of her wedding dress and into comfortable yoga pants and an oversized sweater. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing, but she'd silenced it after the 100th call from reporters. "You're famous," Lily said, bringing her tea. "In a weird, badass kind of way." "I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be married." Isabella laughed bitterly. "Guess I got what I deserved for not reading the fine print on the man." Her father entered the living room, tablet in hand. Derek's company stock dropped 87% in 6 hours. His board called an emergency meeting and voted him out. The SEC has frozen his assets pending investigation. Good, Isabella said simply. The investors are filing a class action lawsuit. They want you to testify. I'll do whatever the lawyers need. Isabella sipped her tea, staring out at the city lights. What about Vanessa? She's been trying to call you, Lily said softly. 17 times since this afternoon. I don't want to talk to her. You might have to, James said. She's offering to be a witness against Derek. The FBI wants her testimony for the fraud case. Isabella closed her eyes. The betrayal from Derek hurt, but Vanessa's betrayal cut deeper. They'd met freshman year of college, survived terrible dorm food and worse dating choices together. Vanessa had been there when Isabella's mother died, when she struggled with imposter syndrome in the male-dominated tech world, through every triumph and failure. And all the while, she'd been sleeping with Derek, helping him plan to steal from Isabella's family. I don't know if I can forgive that, Isabella whispered. You don't have to, her father said, sitting beside her. Forgiveness is earned, not owed. But you might want to hear what she has to say. Not for her sake, for yours. Closure matters. The following weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, depositions, and endless media requests. Isabella declined most interviews but agreed to one, with TechCrunch, an industry publication she respected. Why expose him so publicly? The interviewer asked. You could have handled this privately. Because Derek didn't just hurt me, Isabella explained. He committed fraud against investors, planned to steal intellectual property, and built his entire company on lies. If I'd handled it privately, he would have moved on to another target. This way, everyone knows exactly who he is. The article went viral. Suddenly, Isabella wasn't just a jilted bride, she was a symbol. Women in tech shared their own stories of manipulation and theft. Other companies came forward with complaints about Derek's business practices. The case snowballed. 6 months later, Isabella stood on the stage at a tech conference in San Francisco. Her company, Chen Quantum Systems, had just announced a breakthrough in quantum computing, the very technology Derek had tried to steal. This achievement belongs to my team, Isabella told the audience of industry leaders. People who believed in innovation over theft, who understood that real success comes from creation, not manipulation. After her keynote, she was surrounded by congratulations and business card exchanges. As the crowd thinned, she saw a familiar face approaching, Adrian Cole, a venture capitalist she'd met several times at industry events. Impressive presentation, he said, smiling warmly. Though I should mention I lost quite a bit of money when Ashford Technologies collapsed. Isabella tensed. I'm sorry about that. If you're looking for someone to blame. I'm not, Adrian interrupted gently. I'm looking to apologize. I should have done more due diligence before investing. And I wanted to tell you personally that what you did, exposing the fraud, probably saved other investors from even bigger losses. She studied him carefully. Adrian Cole was known for being ruthless in business but fair. He was also attractive in an understated way, dark hair graying at the temples, intelligent eyes, a genuine smile. That's generous of you, Isabella said cautiously. It's honest, Adrian replied. Look, I know this is forward, but would you have coffee with me sometime? Not business, though I'd love to discuss your quantum research. Just coffee. Between two people who've learned hard lessons about trust and truth. Isabella's first instinct was to refuse. She'd sworn off romance, focusing entirely on her company. But something about Adrian's straightforward approach, his willingness to admit his mistake, made her pause. Coffee, she said finally. Just coffee. And if you try any patent theft schemes, I have a very efficient FBI contact now. Adrian laughed. Fair warning received. How's Thursday? As she drove home that night, Isabella realized something surprising. For the first time since the wedding disaster, she felt something other than anger or determination. She felt curious. Hopeful, even. Maybe not all men were like Derek. Maybe betrayal didn't have to define her forever. She called her sister. I think I just agreed to a date. What? Lily shrieked. With who? When? Tell me everything. His name is Adrian Cole, and it's just coffee, so don't get excited. Too late, I'm already excited. This is huge, Bella. As Isabella pulled into her parking garage, she smiled despite herself. 6 months ago, her life had imploded at the altar. She'd lost her fiancé, her best friend, and her naive faith in people. But she'd gained something too, herself. The knowledge that she could survive betrayal, fight back, and build something even better from the ruins. Derek had tried to steal her technology. Instead, he'd accidentally freed her to become even more successful. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to try trusting again. Carefully. With eyes wide open this time. Coffee on Thursday turned into dinner the following week. Dinner became a tech conference panel discussion where Adrian asked surprisingly insightful questions about quantum encryption. 1 month later, Isabella found herself genuinely enjoying someone's company for the first time since Derek. Tell me something true about yourself, Adrian said one evening as they walked through Golden Gate Park after a restaurant closing had left them still talking on the sidewalk. That's a dangerous question, Isabella replied, but she was smiling. Most people don't really want truth. I've learned that truth is usually better than the alternative, even when it hurts. He stopped walking, turning to face her. I'm divorced. 5 years now. She left me for my business partner, and they took half my clients with them. I spent 2 years being angry before I realized the anger was eating me alive more than the betrayal ever did. Isabella studied his face in the lamplight, seeing genuine vulnerability. Derek tried to steal my family's patents through marriage fraud. My best friend was his accomplice and mistress. I exposed them both at my wedding in front of 200 people, and it made international news. I know, Adrian said. Everyone in tech knows. But that's the public story. I want to know the private one. How are you really doing? No one had asked her that. They'd asked about the company, the legal case, the media coverage. But no one had asked about her, the woman beneath the headlines. I'm terrified, Isabella admitted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Terrified that I'll never trust anyone again. That every time someone is kind to me, I'll wonder what they want. That Derek broke something in me I can't fix. Adrian took her hand gently, his touch warm and steady. He didn't break you. If he had, you wouldn't have had the strength to expose him. You wouldn't be building your company into something incredible. And you definitely wouldn't be here with me right now, being honest about being scared. How do you know I'm not using you? Isabella asked, testing him. Maybe I'm just practicing being normal before I find someone better. Maybe, Adrian agreed easily. Or maybe we're both damaged people trying to figure out if it's possible to trust again. There's no rush, Isabella. I'm not Derek. I don't have a timeline or an agenda. I just like talking to you. Something in Isabella's chest loosened. Adrian wasn't perfect, he was too direct sometimes, worked too many hours, and had admitted to being terrible at remembering birthdays. But he was honest. Consistently, relentlessly honest in a way that felt like safety. Over the next 3 months, they fell into an easy rhythm. Late-night phone calls discussing everything from quantum mechanics to childhood memories. Weekend hikes where they didn't talk at all, just existed comfortably in silence. Dinners with her family where Adrian won over her father by discussing investment strategies and made Lily laugh with terrible puns. I like him, James told Isabella after one particularly successful family dinner. He doesn't try too hard. That's rare. I like him too, Isabella admitted. That terrifies me. Because of Derek? Because I don't trust my own judgment anymore. I thought Derek loved me. I was completely wrong. What if I'm wrong about Adrian too? Her father was quiet for a moment. You weren't wrong about Derek's character, you just didn't see it clearly because he was deliberately hiding it. Adrian isn't hiding anything. That's the difference. The turning point came 4 months after their first coffee date. Isabella had been working late at her lab when her equipment failed catastrophically. 2 years of research, potentially destroyed. She called Adrian without thinking, and he arrived within 20 minutes with takeout and a calm presence. Talk me through what happened, he said, sitting beside her in the lab while she fought tears of frustration. Isabella explained the technical failure, expecting sympathy or platitudes. Instead, Adrian listened carefully, then asked questions that showed he actually understood the complexity of the problem. What if you approached it from the inverse, he suggested. Instead of trying to recover the data, rebuild the experiment using the backup protocols you mentioned. Isabella stared at him. That would work. That would actually work. They spent the next 6 hours rebuilding the experiment together, Adrian following her instructions precisely even though he'd never worked in a quantum lab. When they finally succeeded, Isabella turned to him, overwhelmed with relief and something else, something warm and terrifying and wonderful. Thank you, she said. For showing up. For helping. For not making me feel stupid for panicking. You're not stupid. You're brilliant, and your work matters. Adrian brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle. Isabella, I need to tell you something. Her heart raced. What? I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. I know it's too soon, and I know you might not be ready to hear it. But I don't believe in hiding truth anymore. You make me want to be better. Smarter. More honest. And I want to be there for your successes and your failures, your late nights and your breakthroughs. Isabella's breath caught. Every instinct screamed at her to protect herself, to push him away before he could hurt her. But looking into Adrian's eyes, she saw something Derek had never shown her, genuine vulnerability. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, Adrian admitted. Terrified, actually. But I'd rather be scared and honest than safe and lying. Isabella made her decision. She leaned forward and kissed him, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as he responded. His hands cupped her face gently, and she felt safe in a way she hadn't since before Derek's betrayal. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Adrian smiled. So, that's a good sign? That's a very good sign, Isabella confirmed, laughing. Though if you ever try to steal my patents, I will destroy you publicly and creatively. Fair warning accepted. He kissed her again. I should mention I've already signed an ironclad NDA about your work, consulted with 3 ethics lawyers to make sure there are no conflicts of interest between our companies, and told my entire board that if they ever suggest anything remotely shady regarding Chen Quantum Systems, I'll resign immediately. Isabella pulled back to look at him. You did all that? I did all that, Adrian confirmed. Because I learned from your experience with Derek. Trust isn't assumed, it's built through consistent action. I want to build that with you, if you'll let me. For the first time in over a year, Isabella felt something she thought Derek had destroyed, hope for genuine love. Okay, she said. Let's build it together. 1 year after the wedding that wasn't, Isabella stood in a courtroom for Derek's sentencing. The trial had been exhaustive, revealing even more fraud than initially discovered. Derek had embezzled from investors, falsified research data, and planned multiple patent thefts from various companies, not just Chen Industries. The judge read the verdict with clinical precision. Derek Ashford, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, corporate espionage, and conspiracy. Additionally, you will pay restitution totaling $47 million to affected parties. Isabella felt nothing watching Derek being led away in handcuffs. No satisfaction, no anger, just a distant sense of closure. Adrian squeezed her hand gently from the seat beside her. "How are you feeling?" he asked as they left the courthouse. "Like I can finally close this chapter," Isabella said. "He doesn't get to take up space in my head anymore." Outside, reporters clustered, but Isabella's lawyer handled them efficiently. As they walked to Adrian's car, she saw a familiar figure waiting by the entrance, Vanessa. "Isabella, please," Vanessa said, stepping forward. "I know I don't deserve even a minute of your time, but I need to say something." Isabella stiffened, but Adrian's steady presence kept her grounded. "You have 1 minute." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Vanessa said quickly, her eyes red-rimmed. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I betrayed 8 years of friendship for a man who was using both of us. I've spent the past year in therapy trying to understand how I became that person." She took a shaky breath. "I cooperated fully with the FBI. I gave them everything they needed. And I'm moving to Boston next week to start over somewhere you'll never have to see me." "Why are you telling me this?" Isabella asked quietly. "Because you deserve to know that your strength changed my life. Watching you stand up for yourself at that altar made me realize how weak I'd become, how I'd let manipulation convince me that betrayal was acceptable." Vanessa's voice cracked. "You were the best friend I ever had, and I destroyed that. I just wanted you to know that I see that now, even though it's too late." Isabella studied the woman who'd once been like a sister. Vanessa looked smaller somehow, diminished by guilt and consequences. Part of Isabella wanted to stay angry, to nurse the betrayal forever. But mostly, she just felt tired of carrying it. "I don't forgive you," Isabella said finally. "Maybe someday I will, but not today. What you did broke something fundamental. But I hope Boston gives you the chance to become someone better. We both deserve better than who we were a year ago." Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for that much. I hope you find happiness, Isabella. Real happiness." As Vanessa walked away, Adrian wrapped his arm around Isabella's shoulders. "That was generous of you." "It was honest," Isabella corrected. "I'm learning the difference." 6 months later, Isabella received a simple text from Adrian: "Beach house. Sunset. Dress casual." She arrived to find candles lighting a path down to the shore, where Adrian waited in jeans and a button-down shirt, barefoot in the sand. No grand gestures, no elaborate setup, just him, genuine and nervous. "I promised myself I'd do this right," Adrian said as she approached. "No secrets, no schemes, no manipulation. Just truth." He took her hands, his touch warm and steady. "Isabella Chen, you're the smartest, strongest, most incredible person I've ever known. You survived betrayal and came out fiercer. You build quantum systems that will change the world. And somehow, impossibly, you chose to trust me despite every reason not to." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. "I'm not asking you to complete me or to merge our companies or to give me access to anything except your heart. I'm asking you to marry me because I love you, exactly as you are, and I want to spend my life proving that every single day." Isabella looked at the ring, then at Adrian's face, open, vulnerable, honest. A year ago, she would have run. But now, standing on this beach with a man who'd proven himself through consistent action rather than empty words, she felt only certainty. "Yes," she said, laughing as tears streamed down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." Adrian slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. 8 months later. The ceremony was small, just 30 people in her family's garden. No press, no grand venue, no performance. Isabella wore a simple cream dress and carried wildflowers. Adrian wore a navy suit and couldn't stop smiling. "I promise to be honest, even when it's hard," Adrian said during his vows. "To support your dreams without trying to own them. To love you not for what you can give me, but for who you are. I promise to trust you, even when it scares me," Isabella replied. "To build a life together based on truth, not illusion. To love you not despite our scars, but because of what we learned from them." When the officiant pronounced them married, Isabella kissed her husband feeling nothing but joy and peace. This was what it was supposed to feel like, safe and exciting, honest and real. At the reception, her father raised his glass to Isabella and Adrian, who proved that sometimes the best love stories are the ones we write after we've learned what we don't want. Later, as they danced under string lights, Adrian whispered, "Any regrets?" "Only one," Isabella said. "I wish I'd known a year ago that betrayal wasn't the end of my story, just the end of the wrong chapter. And now? Now I'm writing something better." She kissed him softly. "We're writing something better." Epilogue, 2 years later. Quantum Systems announced a breakthrough that would revolutionize computing. Isabella stood at the press conference, Adrian in the front row where Derek had once sat, except Adrian's pride was genuine and his support without agenda. "This achievement belongs to our entire team," Isabella told the assembled press. "But I also want to acknowledge that sometimes our greatest successes come from our hardest lessons. 2 years ago, I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. Instead, I discovered my own strength and found something real." After the conference, reporters asked about Derek, now 2 years into his sentence, forgotten by everyone except those he'd hurt. "I don't think about him anymore," Isabella said honestly. "My story isn't about revenge or betrayal. It's about learning that the right person doesn't need to steal from you, they celebrate your success and build their own beside it." That evening, Isabella and Adrian sat on their apartment balcony, watching the city lights. "Happy?" Adrian asked. "Completely," Isabella confirmed. "Turns out the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building a life so good they become irrelevant." She thought about the scared woman who'd stood at an altar a year ago, evidence in hand, ready for war. That woman had been strong but wounded, victorious but alone. This woman, the one who'd rebuilt herself, who'd learned to trust again, who'd found love without illusion, she was something more. She was free.